What is the worst case of I know better than my doctor you've ever heard of? Young bubbly mother Rhino was diagnosed with breast cancer. Tried alternative meds as promoted by her flaky girlfriends. Eventually she returned to the doctor who told her it was too advanced to do anything. She died leaving a little boy for her husband and extended family to care for. I still believe her friends contributed to her premature death. Similar story while working as a nurse. A very religious woman diagnosed with bowel cancer. Instead of chemo she went home and prayed. We got her about 2 years after her initial diagnosis with end-stage bowel cancer. At that point she had now fissures where stool would just leak out of her bottom. And there wasn't anything they could do for her. She was fairly young, like late 40s. Had a family and everything. The worst part, this bothers me to this day, is that she likely thought that she failed her God because he didn't cure the cancer. She probably died feeling like she was a bad person. I get angry every time I tell this story. Saw this on the news in Alabama a few years ago. Child got bitten by a timber rattlesnake. Mother said 911 wasn't necessary because she had a home remedy that her grown mother had passed down and all the child needed was to drink the remedy. Take some ibuprofen. And lay down a few hours and she'd be good as new. Child damn near died. Mother lost all 3 of her children and was charged with felony neglect and endangering a child. My dad had a heart attack and went to the emergency room. While he was there he coded 8 times. His heart stopped and he had to be revived. He survived and they admitted him. He had a lot of damage. After a couple of weeks he checked himself out because them goddamned assholes don't know what the hell they're talking about. He was found dead of heart failure about 3 weeks later. Edit, a lot of people didn't know what I meant by coded. My mom tans in tanning beds constantly to the point where she looks like the outside of a baked potato. I told her one day she should stop because she can get skin cancer. And she told me that it's not possible with tanning beds. Old man I knew always had a band-aid on his nose. He had a cancerous growth on it and he would cut it off himself. Would always say, all the doc will do is cut it off. I can do that myself and save $200. Guess who died when the cancer spread elsewhere? Some cancers will be triggered to grow rapidly and out of control if they aren't completely removed. Well, that whole thing with Steve Jobs is pretty high up that list. He was into all sorts of holistic bullshit. Not just holistic, but literally a fruitarian diet. The singular most strong type of diet he could have possibly been on. Ashton Kutcher adopted his diet for a while when he was filming his Jobs movie. His pancreas almost shut down on him. I'm a nurse. My patient's family member was telling everyone that the doctor was an idiot because, and I quote, "What the duck do the kidneys have to do with the bladder? SMH. Well, obviously they don't have anything to do with each other. They don't even start with the same letter. Basic astronomy." My friend is treating her Lyme disease by going to a chiropractor, using essential oils, and getting massages. Obviously against her doctor's advice. When I was in 7th grade I hurt my pinky finger playing softball. But my dad, being the assistant coach that he has, told me I just jammed it. I told him I think I did more than that since my finger was completely numb yet in excruciating pain. Like I picked up the softball after it happened and it felt like there was a hole in the ball where my finger was supposed to be. Disregarding everything I was sobbing to him, he decided to pull me finger since it was jammed. For the next couple months I continued to play softball. Thank God for Icy Hot and Advil. Where my dad said maybe it wasn't jammed since it still hurts, you probably just got a bone bruise. Eventually my finger also developed a very solid bump on the side of my joint, still there BTW, and the pain never really went away. When softball season ended we finally went to the doctor and had x-rays taken. When the doctor saw them he was amazed I still played since my bone was completely shattered into at least 6 pieces. He said he couldn't give an exact number because of the healing and the angle of the x-rays. The bump on my finger was a calcium buildup from the healing which could have been avoided if I had gone to the doctors when it happened. The only good thing was that I didn't need to have my finger broken to fix the placement of any of the fragments since my dad pulled it initially. Gotta love coach dads. Worked for an ophthalmologist and had two distinct idiots that fit this category. The first one claimed she no longer had glaucoma. She had prayed it away. Her eye begged to differ. The other was scheduled for cataract surgery and he came in for his pre-op appointment, only to tell us he had spoken with God. And God told him he didn't need surgery. I told the doctor and she said sure, cancel it. I don't feel like arguing with God today. I have a ton of these. But most recently had a teen patient who had lost speech for a couple days. They got better. And when I saw them again with their mom, I went over the tests we had done and started discussing some of the possible causes. Mom interrupted me and said don't say anything else. I'm a firm believer that if you don't tell someone their diagnosis they can just heal on their own. Literally didn't want me to tell her anything because she thought saying words out loud would give her kid diseases. Oh. Same day I had a lady tell me that she was refusing treatment because she read a study where a guy treated hundreds and hundreds of patients with normal saline and had a 100% success rate. Yeah? Okay lady. My mother believes that if you make food from scratch then it's healthier for you. For instance, she thinks that making a chocolate cake from scratch, including milling her own flour, is a healthier alternative to a store-bought cake with identical ingredients. She is diabetic. Her doctors have said in as many ways as they can think of that she has to reduce her carb intake, and what my mother thinks is, gosh, maybe I should grow the sugar cane myself instead of buying sugar at the store and my blood work will finally be in the normal range. Her liver and pancreas have failed multiple times. Each time, the doctors manage to restore organ function by restricting her carb intake. They explain that she has to continue to follow a low-carb diet at home. She does not. Because she's convinced that she's already on a healthy diet. Rinse and repeat. I teach people on a daily basis how to use urinary catheters. You aren't supposed to reuse them, just use it once. Throw it away. And when you need to catheterize again, open a new one. That's because using a non-sterile catheter can cause urinary tract infections and a host of all kinds of other problems. The doctor will send us a script for how many per day the patients need to use. And every single day, without fail, I'll have at least one or two tell me that their doctor is wrong and they only need one per day. Because they'll just wash it off and reuse it. No. It literally says on the packaging not to do that. Your doctor said not to do that. I'm telling you not to do that. Why do you still think it's okay to do that? About 15 years ago, before the whole gluten-free trend, I worked with a guy who was a vegetarian. We worked side by side, just the two of us, and got along really well. One day, I got curious and asked what led to his vegetarianism. He told me he had been having some health problems and went to see the doctor. Doc ran some tests and told my friend that he should cut wheat out of his diet. This guy says, well, that doesn't sound right. He must have meant meat instead of wheat. Double quote. I met someone who insists that insulin makes their blood sugar get higher, so they don't take it. They also don't take to having all their toes or apparently the whole left foot. But hey, live and let die. Friend of mine sees way too many of these cases on a daily basis. But the worst one so far has to be this lady whose child was born premature. So her baby was rather small to begin with. The doctors do their usual thing. Gives her advice on childcare and everything. And she comes in a week later saying her kid was sick. Not sure why. Friend was appalled to find out that her baby had barely put on any weight since birth. And immediately asked her what in the world had she been feeding the kid. Woman says, oh, I figured since he was so tiny, he didn't need to eat that much. So I've been sticking to about an ounce of milk per meal. Seriously. Woman. I don't know how the child's doing now, but I can only hope he is well. Anti-vaxxers were pretty big for a while. No answer can top anti-vax people. Willfully putting their children in jeopardy to feel like they are more intelligent than the medical community. Working at a supplement store years ago, I had a woman come in asking about vitamin B17. She said her daughter had cancer and was taking her off of chemo despite her doctors pleading with her not to. Some friend of hers claimed B17 was a miracle vitamin they don't want you to know about and can cure just about anything. I told her she should listen to her doctors. She told me to duck off. Wasn't me who got it wrong whatsoever, but my father would insist, yell, force the view, act. I had no mental health issues because I could do things independently. His 84-year-old father surprisingly was the one to tell him to shut his mouth. Doctor gave a former manager some antihistamines. But she didn't take them because she didn't believe it would work. And instead got opiates because it made her feel better. So the doctor didn't know what they were talking about. Then complained symptoms kept getting worse. That woman is now working for the city I used to live in. Edit, I've gotten a few questions. So, she technically broke the law with the help of a shitty doctor to get them. That's also why I brought up the working for the city part. Here's your daily kick to the rubber parts. My father was a stubborn bastard and was adamant about not following doctor's orders. Long-time smoker, drinker, etc. So dear old father goes in and has a mole excised from his pen 15. Uh-oh. Biopsy comes back and it's not malignant. Great. Problem. He didn't follow the doctor's order on how to take care of it after the fact. Gangrene. Yep. They lopped it off. I only found out about that in my late teens. It was a mind-shattering reveal from my mother and older sister. I manage social media for a public health agency. All our immunization vaccine related posts have been getting swarmed by anti-vaxxers lately. No medical training plus anecdotal evidence plus cherry-picked data equals we know better than science. They've now branched out to hit some of our other posts too. Breastfeeding promotion, cancer, HPV, etc. And it's getting to the point where I just want to give up. Which I guess is their goal. Because they certainly aren't going to sway anyone with their dozens of long-winded comments on a single post. Edit, my first ever gold. Thank you so much. Kind stranger. I really appreciate all these supportive comments. I had severe swimmer's ear in 7th 8th grade and it got so bad to the point where I was crying constantly. I went to the doctor where she gave this horrible medicine. 1 week later, the pain has gotten worse and I can't hear out of the ear. I kept telling my mom that it wasn't working and she ignored me until I finally stopped hearing out of it. I see a different doctor and he was like, WTF did that other doctor do? He got me on the strongest eardrops he could find and said one more day of waiting and they might have had to put a wick in my ear. He also told me that the medicine that other doctor gave me was for something completely different in the ear. The infection went away but I still have slight hearing problems in that ear to this day. Go to hell for all the pain and 7 days of sleepless nights you put me through, other doctor. Edit, that other doctor is also notorious for prescribing wrong medications. Someone I know fractured their pelvis in a fall. Went to the doctor and told him their sciatica was acting up. 2 months of treating sciatica to no avail. The doctor ordered x-rays. Turns out never ever had sciatica before. Here's a best case. I was going down on a woman and she was having a lot of pain when I did. Anywhere I touched her there hurt. She told me it had been like that for about 6 months. So I told her to see her doctor, who then told her it was just a yeast infection. Afterwards I told her no. It sounded more like bacterial vaginosis. So she went back to the doctor who told her I was wrong. It was just a simple yeast infection. And to try some Canesten for a couple of days. Told her again. It didn't sound like a yeast infection. And the Canesten might not help. Happily, she agreed that it didn't feel like any yeast infection she'd ever had before and went to see a different doctor, who immediately diagnosed her with BV and gave her some medication that cleared it up. Couple that was super into fitness. Husband gets pneumonia. They decide the best treatment is specially formulated meal plans and vitamin shots. He died in his wife's arms during the middle of the night. Edited a spelling mistake so I'll stop getting inboxed about it. Person with bipolar disorder who had a system where they split part of their personality into a sort of kin character who then whined that their therapist didn't approve of this and told them this was dangerous. And before you ask, that kid was the kind who would harass others. Then claim that it's my bipolar disorder. It's not my fault. It's character name S fault. You. Sounds like my adult niece. She's a raging hun to everyone, family included, and constantly blames her bipolar. Itch please. If you're bipolar then I'm a lesmagid from Atlantis. I'm actually a very large Italian man from NJ. My sister-in-law fed both of her kids homemade goat milk formula from a recipe she found on the internet. I begged her to run it past their pediatrician, but apparently her Google skills are better than a DR's decade of formal schooling. My ex-mother-in-law would always have mixed leftover prescriptions of antibiotics in the medicine cabinet. She would only use medication until she started to feel better. Then she would shelve the rest. When she or someone in her family got sick, she would administer what she considered to be a good dose. I tried to explain to her that an antibiotic prescription only works if you follow the directions and take the whole bottle in the correct intervals. She replied they only say that to get more money. She will be 70 soon and seems to get diagnosed with a new life-threatening disease every couple of years but still going strong. Not my doctor. By my mom's. My mother had a heart attack February of 2017. She was prescribed a couple medications such as beta blockers, etc. My aunt, who's against vaccinations, prescribed medications, and anything non-organic, tried to not only tell my mom the medications she was prescribed were the wrong ones, per a quick 10-minute Wikipedia search, but also that my mom's heart attack must 100% have been health related despite multiple tests and the doctor telling her it was simply stress induced. I'd also like to add that we called my aunt immediately after the ambulance arrived to take my mom to the hospital. And she said she wasn't going to make the 40-minute trip to the hospital unless it was serious. She has also done the same. I know better than everyone but in other health related situations. And she's the type of person you cannot disagree with because the conversation will go nowhere. Very aggravating to say the least. My brother's buddy at birth needed a blood transfusion. Without it he would have died. His religious mother refused on religious grounds. I can't recall exactly what denomination it was, but transfusions were a no-go. Luckily his dad was around to nip that shit in the bud and he grew up to be an excellent RN. His mom also divorced his dad and took custody. My sister has literally said, when you think about it, we're actually smarter than the doctors because we're open to alternative medicine and they automatically dismiss it.